Well, good morning and welcome to Event Tech Live, day one. And thanks for joining us so early in the morning. I'm not gonna do long introductions. I'll just tell you my name, James Morgan, founder of Event Tech Lab. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Tim Manning, who is the creative director of the Swarm Group. He's not going to tear up a telephone book on stage. Rather, he's going to be tearing up the rule book about the exhibitions industry. So, Tim, take it away, please. Thank you.
Very much, James. Lovely. See that everything works. So guys, I will talk with volume because I hear the headphones may have some crackle in the background. So, is that volume adequate? It sounds adequate to me, but yes, good. Okay, so I'm here, first of all, guys. My name's Tim Manning. I'm a little bit odd. It's something I don't like to say too openly, but I do know that I'm a little bit odd. And I'm generally not odd in the way that I look, and I'm generally not odd in the way that I behave, but I'm odd in the way that I think. And I know that I am, and I've found that I am, and I have a predisposition to do different things. When I took 2 degrees, I did a sports and a health science degree, I instead majored on the psychology of behaviour change, which was unrelated to sport. When I joined Whitbread and ran a £4.5 million space for them, I turned it into a live idiosyncrasies of human behaviour experiment. And when I joined the most creative technology company that I've ever worked for, that had a TARDIS slap bang in the middle of the workshop when I arrived, instead I focused on process and outcomes. So I know I've got an odd way of thinking. I know it's not always linear, and it zooms from macro to micro, to the point where I always have a series of micro jobs running. My whole life is a series of micro jobs. My wife asks me frequently, "What do you do again, Tim?" And I really have trouble explaining it, because it varies from week to week and month to month. So I'm going to share with you some ways that I hope I can help you to think differently and put you into my mind space. I'm going to move you to a space that I hope 99% of people will say you're absolutely nuts. And if 99% of people say you're absolutely nuts, that means you're very wrong, or you're on the verge of changing something in a really, really big way. So we're going to try and immerse ourselves in that sort of space. It's taken me to academia, where I work now. I also am founder and owner of a 10-year-old agency called Swarm. And I also run campaigns for brands, currently working with Unilever Global and currently working with Foot Locker Europe. So that's where I am currently, and that's where this odd, bizarre thinking has taken me. And I'm going to show you some of the examples, case studies, and steps to get there, and some of the heroes. And I'm going to start with these guys. I'm going to start by talking about what I think were 3 revolutionaries. They're revolutionaries because Steve became the person who moved computers from the workspace to help you to have fun. He made it personal. He changed a whole genre and a whole way of thinking. Another hero, P.T. Barnum, the man at the top right. Yeah? He was the fairgrounds and amusement man who inspired The Greatest Show on Earth, the movie. What he did was bring advertising and marketing to fairgrounds and attractions. And if you look at this historic poster, you can see there are a whole number of things that even in today's multimedia digital world sound pretty cool. Because wouldn't we like to see 8 monster shows? Yeah? How big is that elephant? Oh my God, and it was related to the mammoth. So he brought advertising and marketing into that space. Heston brought science into the kitchen, and he brought theatre and drama into the front of house restaurant. These were change guys, yeah? And the last change guy you can experience at the Mondrian Hotel, because he runs the best cocktail bar in the world 2 years running, yeah? And Ryan brought luxury, and he brought theatre to cocktails. And the sort of commonality, and I always tend to look for commonalities and rituals and ways of thinking amongst these guys first. So that's probably the first learning. Look for those commonalities, because when they find something, they found something that's new, a new space to play, a new vertical. They created a new way to think. And I'm going to show you, hopefully, 8 steps to help you guys become revolutionary. And then I'll finish by suggesting what I think this sort of event will look like in, I don't know, could only be 1 or 2 years if someone's bold, fearless, and brave enough to deliver. So, let's have a look at those 8 steps. And I'd say the first one is about targeting the human. This came from my psychology background. The human is at the center of everything we do. We're all citizens of planet Earth. We all feel differently. You've all arrived with different individual agendas. You've all arrived with different emotions after the tube journey and the weather this morning. Yet, we've got to provide something that delivers what you want right here, right now. So get to know your audience. And the audience here, I'd say there's 3 different lenses that we should be looking through. We've first of all got the attendee. So the attendee just wants something cool. They want something to tell their boss when they get back why they had a day off work. They want something to share to their mates who they might meet at the weekend to go, what did you do? Well, remember that thing you saw? That was amazing. So they want to be valued in a different way to the exhibitor. And the exhibitor's thinking, holy cow, it's cost me a shed load of money to be here. How am I going to be loved? Will people actually like me? Will people stop at my stand? So we've got a very different lens for these 2 categories. And then the organizer, have you been in their office? Yeah, the organizer's got a very different space. They want to measure everything. They want to know whether they gave stand 4 a discount and whether it was worth it, whether they're going to make their margin, how many people came through the door. And the first group are looking for relationships. Attendees want to meet people. The thing that will make your day amazing could happen in the coffee shop when you talk to a stranger for 2 minutes and they tell you a bit of wisdom or something personal about themselves. Whereas the second 2 are looking for performance and measurement. So they're in very, very different stages. So the first step, however smiley the salesperson is, and for me, we're still in the world, which I work in digital primarily. The digital world, we're still in the world of the pop-up. We've got a long way to go for exhibition. We're still there where all of these guys are going to sell you something first. However smiley and lovely she is, they're trying to sell you something. And we've got to move beyond that. And hopefully, I'm going to help you move beyond those sort of space. So we do need to think differently. We need to reduce the friction to connect people to get the outcome that they really would like. Okay, number 2, step 2. I walk into a store. What does she ask me? Can I help you today, sir? And what do I say? Pre-programmed question always gets a pre-programmed answer. So we've got to break those pre-programmed routine. What is the most famous painting in the world? Anyone shout one out? Yeah, absolutely. I knew you were going to say Mona Lisa. But if I'd have asked you what the 3rd most famous painting in the world was, oh my God, we'd have a few discussions there, wouldn't we? So don't go with pre-programmed. Who's the most successful entrepreneur in the world? Can't hear, but I'm going to go, you thought Richard Branson, possibly, or at least a good degree of you did. But how do we know that success defined is the thing that we think? Do we know Richard Branson wants to create new companies? He might be a serial company creator, and he's fighting the urge to stop creating companies. So we need to stop doing pre-programmed. We need to define things in a much clearer way. So start with a different question. And start by testing your AV before you come on stage. So starting with a different question at a different place will get you to a different answer. Okay. Step 3. Let's increase your social currency. Let's enable you to connect people. So this event, the organizers have the opportunity to increase all of your social currency. And they can do that in a number of ways. I bet they've not networked any exhibitor to exhibitor. Yet, when you wander up to a stand, the exhibitor could be saying, do you know what, I understand I'm not for you today, or understand in your lifetime you'll never buy from me, but I know the best AV guy just over the way, because you're looking for AV, aren't you? And I can refer you on to him. Yeah? So increase social currency and try to get relationships to come together. And organisers can do it in a whole lot of different ways. You know, partnerships. Are there any micro partnerships within this exhibition hall at the moment? People are working for each other. I might not be buying from you today, but could I refer you to a friend? Because we do that online. We do that online with complete strangers by looking at reviews. So if I referred you to who I think is the best AV company in the world, and they're in this hall over in the corner, you'd probably listen to my recommendation. If the guy who walked in at the front desk said, you know what, there's free croissants over on stand 16, I bet the majority of you would have gone for the free croissants and listened to the recommendation. Okay? So connect people, yeah? Step 4, 10x everything. You are too little in your thinking. And this logic comes from a guy called Astro Teller. And Astro Teller runs Google Skunkworks, now called Google X. He's the head of Google Skunkworks. And what does 10x thinking mean? Well, 10x thinking means if you think 10 times bigger, you're in a unique space. Because everyone goes for 10% bigger, don't they? And it's a pretty crowded marketplace to go for 10% bigger. So let's go 10 times bigger. If you think 10 times bigger, you will start with a blank piece of paper. But if you only start with 10% bigger, I guarantee you will start from where you are at the moment. So we have to do the things where we go big. We think big. And Astro Teller is telling us, swing big. Go for that big mission. Go for the billion with some sort of delayed reward, rather than go for the million this year. Go for the big thing. Okay. So how do you moonshot think? Number 5, tech should be first. And what I mean by that is on the blank piece of paper, interruptions, technology, the way that you work, the network underneath everything should be the very first design. We shouldn't be designing a grid-like structure, which I know every organizer and exhibitor does first. We should actually be thinking, how do we connect people and how do we make tech, allow tech to be the enabler? Because the technology is right there, right now, to remove silos from technology and enable them to bring things together. We don't need a queue when we walk in. We really don't. Right now we don't. We've got the technology. We don't need to be walking up to an exhibition stand and be showing a lanyard and be manually scanned. Because with RFID, it knows I'm in that space immediately. Things can be much more frictionless, much easier. And for you guys, anyone who thinks anything in the tech space, you should start to understand these spaces. I spend my time digging into technologies, really getting granular, speaking to the experts, wallowing in the pool of ignorance. Put yourself into the uncomfortable space and ask the uncomfortable questions. Say, I don't know and I don't understand, and you will profit from that opportunity. And these are things we know we always get talked about, and they lead us eventually to data, which is the currency of today and tomorrow. We know data, getting the signals from the noise and interpreting the data is the critical factor. How many people are here right now? How many people are here? What are their movements? What does that really mean? You know, what are the hypotheses that we can make from that? Okay, step 6, be brave. Crunch your consumer journey. Really crunch it up. Don't fear. Go for the things that you want. Yeah? Sell something, agree something, book something right now. Don't swap a business card. It's a bit limp, and how many of us look at the business cards? I threw away about 400 business cards yesterday of people I probably have never spoke to and wish I could have done, but I didn't. Because all of my contacts are on my phone. They're all in that place. So make your appointments, make a sale, make a micro event around your event that you're inviting people to. Move people to the next step in your process. And importantly at the bottom, give an incentive. In the digital world, you never give your email away without getting something back, do you? Yet we're asking people here, just give me your card and all your contact details, and all I'm going to do is promise to sell you something. It isn't the real world we're in anymore. Events, trade shows have moved on. The digital world is dragging us in that direction, and we're following very slowly behind. Very slowly. Number 7, the Burrian's donkey fable. The Burrian's donkey fable is now about how you should start to use that information. I want you guys, I challenge you to make a choice. And Burrian's donkey is the donkey that stood in the middle, and he's got as much water as he could ever need. And he's got as much food as he could ever need. And the donkey's going, I don't know which way to turn. I'm not going to make a decision. So you've got to take that 10x decision, guys. You've got to create your new landscape. Create your bit of paper. Don't be Burrian's donkey. Make a decision to move somewhere. We're all capable. Every single one of the entrepreneurs I showed you at the beginning, every single founder who come through these walls in the next 2 days, started as an individual who faced their fears, who dove into the pool of ignorance. Okay, and the last thing is, whatever you do it with super credibility. So this is a story from Pieter Diamandis, who, first of all, in 1996, read something called The Spirit of St. Louis, which was a book about Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic. Now, his idea was, he said, do you know what, I'd love to go to space. Genuinely, that was the idea. How can I get there? And he said, well, I'll get people to build a rocket. And what better way to get people to build a rocket? We'll put a competition out there. We'll call it the X Prize. X stood for the sponsor that he didn't have. Took him a year to raise $500,000, and he spent it all on this single grainy pictured event in 1996, where he put $10 million that he didn't have up for grabs for this competition on a stage where he had NASA, the Federal Aviation Authority, and 20 astronauts on stage with him. Super credibility. He had nothing. He just blew it up big. And do you know what the papers wrote next day? X Prize across the world. Everybody was excited. It did take him 5 years to get the $10 million, and it took 10 years, fortunately, for somebody to get a space rocket that could come up and return twice in a week. So he had something on his side, which was a bit of luck, but he was brave, he was fearless, he dove into the pool of ignorance, and he found out the best way to achieve what he needed. So, that's the roundup of where we are, guys, for the tools, the steps that I'd like to challenge you guys to immerse yourself in. And if we immerse ourselves, I think that the trade show of the future will be completely different. It will mean that we'll have no loyalty cards except on our phone. Our phones will be the glue that run everything. We won't just be happening in one geography now, we'll be live across the world. We won't just be having speakers here, we'll have speakers from across the pond who'll be talking to us live. Geographies will smash together. We'll have AV suppliers who won't be showing one screen with one video on. They'll be changing to immersive environments so you can step inside and know what a club is like, or know what an office is like, or know what an event is like, and know how amazing it is if they create it. We will be immersed, we will be targeted, everything will be personalized, it will be transformational, and it will be frictionless. So my final question for you guys is, how can you 10x think? How can you ask yourself a different question to the one when you arrive today that you're going to ask yourself? And how can you be a little bit odd like me? Thank you. Any questions, guys? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay.
I have a microphone in my hand. I'll come over to you if you have any questions for Tim. Hand up and I'll come over. Lady at the back.
That gives me a chance to do my shoelace, James, which is great. Which I stepped on at some point and didn't. Health and safety, done my shoelace. Sorry.
Hi. I was just wondering, how do you encourage the exhibitors and sponsors to think a little more crazy as well, and to kind of appreciate the crazy ideas?
Okay, so I think anybody can move into your thought space. And so question was, how can we get sponsors to take this different thinking? And I think anyone can move into your thought space if you involve them early enough in that conversation. So I think you've got to get parallel thinking. And the way to get parallel thinking is to have conversations. So very early on, clients will give me a brief, and I'll often have a session where we actually rewrite that brief. So we get really early on what we intended, and we start with that blank piece of paper again to go, okay, so hang on, what are we trying to do today? We're trying to immerse people, we're trying to make relationships, we're trying to get people together. We start really big picture, and then we start to come in a little bit further, and then you start to get, I think, parallel thinking. Doesn't always work. You know, I've had times where a client has said to me, holy cow, that was lucky. And I've gone, what do you mean? She said, well, I was sweating when I was presenting to the board. I didn't know, really, that it was going to be amazing as it was. And I thought I was taking her 2 degrees off north, and she thought I was taking her west in her own mind. So I think get people to parallel think, and that only happens through conversations and joining up the thinking, really.
Tim, we've got a couple of questions on Glisser here.
Okay, I've got to see this, have I?
And I will read it out. Isn't revolution far too risky? Okay, risk-averse people, obviously, in the events industry. Isn't controlled evolution more effective?
Okay. So it's a good question, really good question. So I think that I work in retail. I'm mostly digital and I'm mostly retail. And I'm about 30-40% campaigns with brands. And let me just ask you, how long has retail been changing? A long time. It says that it's changing. How much has retail really changed? Not very much. Okay? So I would put the answer back that if we want to create change, we have to have some brave souls who go to the extremes. And it's only then do the evolutionary, small and micro changes become effective because someone's gone way out there. Steve Jobs didn't say, I just want to put a different sort of feel on the plastic computer. He said, we're going to make them in blue, orange, green, and we're going to call them personal computers, which there wasn't even a word for it. You know, I did some stuff for Adidas in '96 where we had people talking together online. We didn't know what to call it. Even after the project, we didn't know what to call it. Now it's called a chat room. So you don't have words sometimes for stuff. Somebody's got to stretch the envelope, and then everybody else will fit in. Question is, are you envelope stretchers, or are you happy people who, like my wife, would like me to be a sensible person, do a sensible day job where she can tell her friends, oh, it's okay, he's a policeman. And everyone knows what a policeman is, even though there's 100 different types of policemen. But we're all comfortable with that. So how do you move out the comfort? Okay.
Great. Any more questions from the audience? Hands up. Otherwise, we'll just go to the screen. Let's go. Maybe we should stick with predefined questions as not to destabilize the whole sales process.
Okay. I'll only say one word. Get what you will always get what you've always got. Do what you always do, get what you always get. No, nothing else to say to that. Do you want to get what you've always got? No.
And this is a great question, I think. Isn't the risk of not evolving more dangerous?
Yes. What happened to all of the creatures in the world that haven't evolved? They're extinct. So we must evolve. In fact, the consumers around you, your customers, or you being customers of someone else, are forcing us to evolve as humans with that sort of race. But remember, anyone who doesn't evolve is extinct, and that includes big companies around the world who've died with many, many multi-million, billion-dollar bank accounts.
Okay, well, we'll leave it there. Let's thank Tim Manning from Swarm Group.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And if you want to hang around, in about 10 or 15 minutes, we have Paddy Power.
Could I ask one question, James?
You can ask a question, Tim.
Do the slides get shared through any sort of portal?
Yes, on Glisser. So you should all have the Glisser link.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And you can download the slides there. Yeah.
Lovely.
So they've got your 8 steps, Tim. Okay, and if you want to hang around, in about 10 minutes' time, we've got Paddy Power, who's talking about an alternative approach to using event technology. Thank you.